NET-113 hardware course, and today is Thursday, 10/13/16. We are on week 7. Alright, so just finished up chapter 4, even though we need to review some things. There's a lot of information in there about processors and memory. But we need to stay on track. Today we talked about heat, this devices getting warm, mobile devices making everything smaller, laptops, everything closer together. We talked about the issues onboard video, not as much power and not as much heat generation as if you put in a card, video card. Talked about airflow, how important it is, not having it opening in your case, seeing how air flows, making sure stuff isn't interfering with airflow. Dust, meant that to be. We talked about power supplies, 30% over for wattage. Most stuff that was in the chapter, we just kind of overviewed that. And we talked about problem solving. First thing, is it a hardware problem or is it a human problem? Okay, the first thing you need to do is, if it's determined, that there is probably a hardware problem after talking to a person, you want to make sure you understand the person's level of knowledge so you can work with them to do the interview. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But where do you get results? Well, the web, but you got to be careful, making sure you're using appropriate or quality sites, chat, or forums. A big thing about this is you can build relationships with other people, which down the road can be quite advantageous for either solving problems or even making career changes. Manufacturers give you software to check, sometimes in the installation disk. All kinds of manuals. Some people really like to have a manual look in. Some people prefer to be more online search. And then being able to look at tech associates, people in the same facility that you may be able to go to. Or, talk about down here a little bit, move up to a person that knows a little bit more about what's going on. We need to document the work we do in solving a problem. And we talk about escalating the problem. When one level can't solve it, you move it up to another level. And sometimes that even moves off-site, where you're getting professional help to solve a problem. Create a ticket. That ticket helps enforce documentation, plus charging different areas for the ticket. Different departments for the IT support. It's a big deal to figure out what percent of a company's budget is being spent on IT. So, we talked about knowledge of the person in an interview. The book gives all those different areas of where you talk to the person as far as questions ask them, who's using the computer, has it occurred before, and what causes it, and etc., etc. You also then, if this is the first thing, you're trying to define the problem, then you need to make sure if the data, if the machine isn't working, where are you at data-wise? Is the data been backed up? Sometimes we can use software to capture the data off the hard drive. We can move the hard drive to another computer, or sometimes you can pay another service to actually recover the data. This could be huge, depending on the situation. Okay? We talked about, I gave the example of a Linux box. The hard drive was full. They couldn't get into the machine. Somebody had gone on vacation. The new person didn't realize they were supposed to delete off these large groups of files. So it filled up. If I remember right, we actually took another hard drive and plugged it in, set it to boot to that hard drive, removed the files, and then got it working. PC and software. Soft support we talked about. If somebody else is when you start asking people who are not supposed to be supporting the software, but you ask them to do software tasks, and pretty soon you get this person, this $80,000 person is doing work that's taking away from their regular job. Years ago, I don't know what it is now, the hardware and software, or basically the hardware only made up about 10% of the cost, and all the rest of the cost was software and support and training and all those things. So just buying the hardware isn't a big expense in having technology in a business. So then we talked about a process or a pattern that would develop. Start with the simple things first. Power. We talk a little bit about device drivers, even though that's a software fix, but often somebody thinks there's something wrong with hardware where it was a device driver. Start with the simple things first and then work your way to more complex things. Develop a process. Make sure you understand the problem before you try to solve something. Don't just start changing things thinking, well, I'll change this, see what happens. This shooting in the dark. You don't want to do that. Last thing I'm going to mention here, if you change one thing at a time, and if that doesn't fix the problem, you should change it back and then try something else. Don't get into a risky position to where all of a sudden you change 3 things and now all of a sudden you have a bigger problem than you had before. And now you don't know which one of those things is causing that bigger problem. Okay? So be particular about how you approach it. Alright? The rest of the day, the students spent working on labs. They used the machines, and some of the labs you can do just from the web, and I don't know if they have far enough, but we'd like to set up some errors in some machines and then have other students check to see what those are. That's it.